I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Wilson School Board for Monday, March 4th, 2019. Can I have roll call, please?
Here.
Mr. Owen?
Here.
Mr. Hart?
Here.
Mr. Hopp? Dr. Kennedy? Here. Mrs. Cocker? Here. Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. Negrini?
Here.
Mr. Wolf?
Here.
That's 8 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. Can we all please rise for the pledge to the flag? Thank you. Clearly, we have a busier room tonight than we normally do, so we've asked Mr. Moravich just to address the crowd pertaining the subject that you're here for, and we will provide some additional information later in the meeting. Mr. Moravich.
Sure. So this is where I normally read the public participation statement, and I will add some information to that so the public is aware of the process. Pursuant to the Sunshine Law, Robert's Rules, and the board policy relating to public participation in school board meetings, persons attending school board meetings are expected to conduct themselves in a responsible, respectful manner that does not disrupt the meeting. Those wishing to have conversation should do so outside the boardroom. Public comment will occur only during the public comment period, which is 2 times for Wilson, which is immediately before the agenda on non-agenda items, but I understand we have no, or on agenda items, we have no agenda items, and then on non-agenda items, which will be at the end of the meeting. Public participation is not question and answer, but instead is an opportunity to offer comment on matters that are or may come before the board for vote. All comments must be directed to the school board as a body and as a whole, and not to individual board members or elected officials in attendance. Clapping, calling out, cheering, or making other statements when you are not addressing the board will not be tolerated and are not permitted. Concerning personnel matters and student personnel issues, personal student issues, the board is not permitted to address those in any manner. This board could potentially sit as a hearing body to hear any dispute over the termination of an employee of any type. And therefore, it's both the instruction of the solicitor and just practice under the school code that this board could be eventually a body deciding on the continued employment of any employee. Therefore, any personnel matter cannot be discussed by the school board, and that's why, to the extent anybody's attempted to contact school board members, they, on the instructions of council, have not addressed any individual public people regarding any employment of an employee at this school district. The opportunity is a 3-minute opportunity. It's my job to time you, and I will tell you when there's 1 minute left. The board policy is Board Policy 903 is on our website.
Thank you. We're going to move on to a presentation by the Wilson Theater Company, who I think is waiting out in the hallway.
Hi everyone, I'm Jillian Goodrich. If you remember me from October, we presented then a selection from Little Shop of Horrors, and tonight we'll be presenting a selection from Les Mis, which actually shows in just a couple of weeks. So tonight we brought One Day More, which is the Act 1 finale, and in place of our Marius Lucamone, who is out sick, we have Ben Small. So a big thank you to Ben for stepping in for that. So here's One Day More. Thank you so much, guys. We've all been super excited for Les Mis because it's coming really close. And we've been working super hard despite the environmental change. Obviously, we switched directors, which was crazy, but we've really been working through it, and I'm confident that it's going to be great. The other shows that we had this season were, of course, Boeing and Little Shop, which I said we presented last time. And then in between, we had ITS, which is the International Thespian Conference, which we actually took Little Shop to that conference. And so we showed that at a state level, and we were actually fortunate enough to have one of our officers, the community outreach officer, Morgan Reppert. She became a state thespian officer, which she's one of 9 students, high school students, to represent theater at a state level. So that's amazing. We're super proud of her. Our other shows, Our Town, which if you didn't see Our Town, that was so, I can't even explain it. We were all kind of, our hearts were warmed but also crushed at the same time. It's about love, life, and death, and it really made us all fortunate to just be living this amazing life that we are. Les Mis, obviously, is coming up next. It's March 14th, 15th, and 16th, and the progress we've been making is unbelievable. I'm so impressed with every rehearsal we have. We're taking leaps and bounds. It's actually one of my favorite musicals, and everybody else is super excited too. To wrap up the year, we have our one-act festival, which are directed by our students that are in senior acting and directing, and we actually have 12 one-acts this year, which I think is the most we've had in a really long time, if not ever. And we've all started the rehearsal process, and as seniors, it's really amazing to have worked so hard, and now we're able to direct our own show after we've been in so many. So yeah, that's really exciting. It's April 24th is when it starts. That's a Wednesday, and then the festival carries out through Saturday the 27th, and on Saturday we're actually showing all 12 shows, which is an exhausting day, but it's also really fun. And then before that, on April 10th, we take 2 of the one-acts, 2 of the 12, to Bucks County One-Act Festival, where we workshop with professionals and we interact with other theater kids across the state, and we watch a couple other one-acts, and we normally get awards, and it's something that's really cool because we're one of the only schools that brings one-acts that are directed by students. It's always something that's really impressive. There's some pictures from Little Shop and Our Town, both beautiful shows. In terms of events, we've had Princess and Pirate Tea Party, which I actually organized, and that's always a blast. We dress up as princesses and pirates and Prince Charming this year, and we interact with the children in the Wilson community. And actually this year we've had a couple of parents that reach out to our students to have them go perform at birthday parties. And so it's always interesting to me when fundraising opportunities like this lead to bigger things like networking and jobs and connections. Next, we had Supper Serenade, which was unbelievably successful. We were so shocked. We didn't expect such a great turnout. And so many of the members of community, and I was told that a couple of you guys were there, which is awesome. Thank you so much for that support. It was, again, such a huge success, and we were able to raise a lot of money. Next, we have our fundraising officer, Sophia Mattis, who's going to be talking about the bingo fundraiser and the Disney trip.
Okay. Hello, my name is Sophia Mattis, and I've been the fundraising officer for Wilson Theater Company for the past 2 years. And in my time with Wilson Theater Company, I've learned so much, from how to build a set, how to carry myself on stage, and most importantly, just how hard someone can work for something they love. I might not have been able to pass basic algebra with theater, but I learned how to work with others and collaborate on artistic projects throughout my 4 years here. This past weekend, we actually held a bingo, created and run by myself. I had the help of adults along the way, but for the most part, it was myself and my fellow intern, Megan, and also my other officers running it for the 2nd year in a row. I cannot express the amount of love I feel for those who helped me get bingo off the ground and running. And to have it do even better this year, making almost $3,000 for Wilson Theater Company, was unimaginable, and I wouldn't have had that type of experience without Theater Company. I also had the pleasure of having a part in planning our upcoming Disney trip along with Mr. Reppert and Kathy Murray. The amount of work and love myself and others in Wilson Theater Company have put in is simply remarkable to me. From students building extravagant sets to designing lights by themselves to students improvising and giving input in the blocking for shows like Godspell, I am astounded at the talent we have in every aspect of theater, and I wouldn't be the person I am today without Wilson Theater Company, and I think that's really, really amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for allowing us to present today. We really enjoyed showing you what we love to do so much. And the amount of improvement that I've seen within our members this year has been astounding. The leadership, fundraising, and technical skills that we've learned here in Wilson Theater Company are sure to carry on throughout the rest of high school and then into later years. This has been a great way to end my Wilson Theater Company career, as I am a senior, and I know that the other seniors feel the same. And next year, I can't wait to see what they all do. And so thank you all so much for your support with for the arts. We would not be able to progress this much without you. So thank you again, and I hope to see you all at Les Mis.
Thank you. Thank you for being a good testament to a program we believe in, and if that sampling is any indication, it's going to be a great show. If you haven't gotten your tickets, March 14th through 16th, right? Should be sold out. So thanks again for coming tonight. At this time, I know many in the room are here because they're concerned about the future of our AP Calculus program. I've asked Mr. Trickett, our high school principal, to come up and present to you the plan we have in place moving forward in the absence of our current teacher. So, Mr. Trickett, if you don't mind just taking a few minutes.
So hello, everyone. I see a lot of familiar faces, whether it's students or parents or even concerned educators that are here today. I have been in communication with the parents as well as the students. Understandably, the communication was very similar on both instances of the emails that I've sent. I stand here before you today to reiterate that we have in place, beginning last week, 2 certified and qualified Pennsylvania mathematics teachers who are working with your students, whether it's in AB Calculus or in BC Calculus. Those 2 teachers will be remaining in the classroom with your students daily and to support them with all of their curricular needs. I know there are some questions regarding maybe some other people who were also in and out. There's been some miscommunication or misunderstanding there. There was an additional substitute teacher that was in the classroom, as well as another one of our instructional coaches, also a certified math teacher, Mr. McCaffrey, who has also been in there guiding our teachers as we've been working through this transition.
Thank you. Before we move on, just an announcement. The board did meet in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss personnel issue. Moving on to approval of the minutes. Looking for a motion to approve the minutes for the school board for February 19th, 2019. Mr. Martin, thank you. Mrs. Cocker, second. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Payment of bills. Mr. Martin.
Mr. President, I submit for approval tonight bills in the amount of $1,215,635.46.
Thank you. Do I have a second? Mr. Negrini, thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Hart? Dr. Kennedy? Mrs. Cocker? Mr. Martin? Mr. Negrini? Mr. Wolf? That's 8-4-0 against.
Thank you. Superintendent's report. Dr. Fadley.
Thank you, President Wolf. It's my privilege this evening to present the personnel and program recommendations as listed. Before the board votes on those items, I would like to call out one retirement that is listed in the agenda this evening, and the retirement is for Michael Rapp, who is in our transportation department as a mechanic. He has serviced the district and served the district for 13 years, and I would like to wish him well on his retirement. He will retire effective October 14th of 2009, but again, thank you for his service. With that, I present to you the personnel program recommendations.
Okay, thank you. Looking for a motion for 4.1 through 4.7.
4.7?
Yep.
I need to pull 4.5.
Okay, so we're going to break out. We'll do 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 4.4, and 4.6 first. Do I have a motion for those? Mr. Hart, thank you. Second. Mr. Ehrlich, thank you. Roll call on those.
Mr. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Hart? Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
That's 8-4, 0 against.
Thank you. Then looking for a motion for 4.5. Mr. Ehrlich, thank you. Second. Mr. Hart, thank you. Roll call, please. Sure, you have discussion? Yep.
I want to point out that one of the hires that are on this list is getting started at a master's degree. This person only has one degree in education. It's an initial degree and master's. What used to happen in the state of Pennsylvania is if you wanted to go back and get your degree in elementary ed or secondary ed, you had to go back on what we used to call post-bac. So it was post-bachelor's, and you just went back for your certification. In all of its glory, the PD decided, well, you shouldn't just you should go back and you should get your certification and a master's degree. Unfortunately, the way PD sets these programs up in colleges is that they're getting a master's degree in elementary education with actually less coursework than someone in with a bachelor's degree in education. So they have one degree, let's say, in accounting. Their next degree is in elementary education. They're going to start at the master's degree with less coursework, sitting next to someone who has 2 degrees in education. Maybe degree 1 in elementary ed, maybe degree 2 in elementary ed or reading or another one. And I don't think it's fair to teachers to start this person who has less coursework than our new teachers with a bachelor's degree. And it's expensive for the district because this person needs to go back immediately and get 24 credits. So it's not, to get your level 2 certification in Pennsylvania, you have to go for an additional 24 credits within 6 years of teaching, plus have 3 successful years of teaching in order to get your level 2 certificate. So I'm saying, not saying against hiring this person, but this person should have been hired at the bachelor's level.
Mrs. Lewis, would you mind giving any clarification on that? Thank you.
This is not where I usually like to be at this meeting. Our contract gives us the ability to hire individuals at a different range for a step if we need to. What Wilson has never done is questioned an individual's degree when they came to. If someone does go to a school, Alvernia is a typical school where if you were not educated in Pennsylvania in your elementary education degree and you came back to Pennsylvania, you would go to Alvernia for 24 credits to get the certification there. And we would go ahead and put an individual at bachelor's plus 24, not master's degree. But in this case, this individual went to Kutztown University, has a master's in education, and we are hard-pressed to do anything but add her to the salary schedule at a master's degree. And that may be certainly an area for discussion with the next contract, and when PDE finalizes some of the information that they are doing now. But our current salary schedule is master's/master's equivalency. So I understand where you're coming from. However, our system has not caught up to and doesn't play by those rules.
And I'm just saying how this is going to feel sitting next to someone who has a real master's degree in education and a real undergraduate degree in education.
I certainly can't. We do hire quite a few people that have that teacher certification that may not have gone through a bachelor's education degree. So this is the way we have approached this. And like I said, until our contract or PDE states otherwise, this is the system that we have in place.
No, Mrs. Lois, if I understand correctly, just to clarify, our collective bargaining agreement assigns where we place teachers with a master's degree.
But you do have the ability to bargain up or bargain down that.
We've never done that for a column placement. Never.
This is an initial education degree, this master's degree.
We have quite a few people. So. Absolutely, University of Pittsburgh
And I don't think
does
that they should do that either.
If a person's qualified to teach the position and administration has done the interviewing, I can support that person being hired. So it makes sense to me because some schools do offer a fifth-year program. Lehigh being one, University of Pittsburgh being another, and other big-name schools offer a fifth-year program to get the same type of certification where they end up with a master's.
Just so I understand. For example, you could have somebody that had received their BA in, let's just say, finance or economics, but didn't get their teaching degree. Now they're going to go and now they went and did the required coursework, got their master's degree in education, so they can teach in a public school. So we don't want to penalize that person because their undergraduate degree actually is maybe a benefit to them teaching.
That's correct.
Is that accurate? So part of it may depend on what their bachelor's degree is.
If it's in chemistry and
Right.
they're going to be a science teacher, I think this is a completely different conversation. But if their degree, if their initial bachelor's degree isn't in finance and they're going to elementary ed,
I'm just trying to, but under our current collective bargaining agreement, this is typically what we've done.
This is our history, yes.
Right.
Anything else? All right, I think we still need to...
So we're just voting on 4.5.
Just 4.5. I think we need we had two motions for that, correct? Okay, so roll call for 4.5.
Mr. Hart? Yes. Dr. Kennedy? No. Mrs. Cocker? Yes. Mr. Martin? Yes. Mr. Negrini? Yes. Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich?
Yes.
I'm sorry, and Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
So that's 7 for, 1 against.
Okay, now looking for a motion for 4.7. Mr. Martin, thank you. Mr. Negrini, thank you. Any discussion?
I just want to add some personal comments. I'm not anti-stipend. There are a lot of wonderful people under the spring sports and the extracurricular part of this. I just feel there are certain names that are missing, and that is why I'll be voting no.
Okay. Anything else?
At a later date, continue to discuss whether or not certain stipends are deserved and or to be earned, and certainly can revisit additional names to be added, certainly at the next board meeting. I think that would be something that should be discussed with the extracurricular committee and administration, and perhaps we'll see those names in 2 weeks.
Thank you. Roll call for 4.7, please.
Dr. Kennedy? Yes. Mrs. Cocker? Yes. Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini? Yes. Mr. Case?
No.
Mr. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
That's 7 for, 1 against.
Thank you. Moving on to 5.1, looking for a motion to approve the 2 additional chaperones to attend the trip to Cleveland as presented. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Mr. Negrini, it's a voice vote. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. 6.1, looking for a motion to approve the transportation van and bus driver safety attendance bonus as presented. Mr. Martin, thank you. Mr. Hart, second. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hart? Yes. Dr. Kennedy? Yes. Mrs. Cocker? Yes. Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
That's 8-4, 0 against.
7.1 under operations, looking for a motion to grant permission to purchase a mobile lift as presented. 7.2, looking for a motion to grant permission to move forward with the decommissioning of underground storage tanks as presented. 7.3, looking for a motion to grant permission to replace the emergency generator at Lower Heidelberg School as presented. 7.4, looking for a motion to approve to put out bid the asphalt repair between upper and lower house of the high school as presented. 7.5, looking for a motion to approve the purchase of 5 sheds as presented. 7.6, looking for a motion to approve to purchase equipment for the use of the grounds crew as presented. And 7.7, looking for a motion to approve the bid of the roof repair and/or replacement at the lower house of the high school as presented. So I have a motion for 7.1 through 7.7. Mr. Case, thank you. Mr. Negrini, any discussion?
I would actually like to just make a comment about 7.1 of the purchase of the mobile lift. I believe it stemmed from a first grade class with one of their students in their class is wheelchair bound and was unable to access the stage for their Christmas concert, or their holiday concert. Because of this, the first graders and their teacher wrote a note to the principal requesting some sort of either whether it was a project that the high school students could help construct a ramp or a purchase of a ramp so that their classmate could join them on stage. So I just wanted to add that little
That's a great
touch,
thing.
yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
One of the additional benefits of this lift is obviously as a mobile lift, we are able to service all of our schools for any individuals that may have difficulty accessing a stage and/or an area. So it certainly is a good use of funds.
Yeah, I agree. Instead of, I believe, Mr. Negrini, you mentioned before, instead of installing something at every building, this will be a lift that will be able to be transported to any of the buildings where we need it.
That's correct.
Yeah. Any further discussion? Okay, looking for a roll call for 7.1 through 7.7.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker? Yes. Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
That's 8-4, 0 against.
Thank you. 8.1 under curriculum and staff development, looking for a motion to approve the contract for the virtual field trip provided by Boston Tea Party Ships and Museums as presented. Dr. Kennedy, thank you. Mr. Case, any discussion? Yes.
If it's connected to the curriculum, if it would be possible to have this experience at all of the elementary schools. Because it looks like a great opportunity, and it includes a virtual tour. I think it would be beneficial that all of our 3rd and 4th graders experience that.
Sounds like a good idea. I would imagine that's something that the teachers in those buildings would have to get together and put that request in, but it sounds doable.
How's the licensing? I mean, is it you pay, and then everyone can have it, or would that?
More. My understanding with this particular virtual field trip is per school, so it would be that fee per school. Certainly, after we have had an opportunity to see how this experience is for students, that we would reach out if that's something that other buildings would like to do as well. We would provide that support.
In my understanding and reading, it looks like this is actually a live tour. It's done through Skype. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Any other discussion? Roll call for 8.1, please.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy? Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
That's 8-4, 0 against.
Moving on to our review of policies. We have a final reading and adoption of the following. So looking for a motion to approve the final reading and adoption of policy 204, 227, 233, and 235. Do I have a motion for those? Mrs. Cocker, thank you. Second, Mr. Case. Any discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin? Yes. Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
That's 8-4, 0 against.
We then have second readings of 239, 249, 250, and 251, no vote, and a first reading of 237, 241, and 248 with no vote. Moving on to 10.1, looking for a motion to approve the contract with Thought Exchange pending solicitor review and approval. Do I have a motion for that? Mr. Hart, thank you. Second. Mr. Ehrlich, thank you. Any discussion? Yes.
Am I to understand that this will now be used for all of our surveys throughout the district? Because I know in the past we've used some of the ones through Google and some of the other SurveyMonkey and things like that. So I just want to understand, is this now going to be the kind of the standard that we're going to use for any surveys, whether it's student surveys, parent surveys?
Yeah, it's a very good question. This platform is designed to engage stakeholder groups, different stakeholder groups in a focused thought question to provide timely input from our community of stakeholders. So we are hoping that this will expand our ability to gauge our community's interest and or opinions on certain topics, that will also be provided with analytics to really flush out main themes and ideas that the board will be able to utilize to help drive strategic vision of the school district.
Thank you.
Our previous SurveyMonkey, or did we have a contract with a previous company for the same surveys?
In the past, over the past year and a half, called Hanover. We are going away from the contract with them because it was more expensive, and this service will provide a much more robust opportunity for the district at a third of the cost.
Because one of my main concerns was the cost, but also in researching the Thought Exchange service, there was a school district that had an issue with, because it's open and people can comment pretty much whatever they want, just that we have a way of not keeping comments out of the survey. Let's say, for example, if I think a demonstration would be helpful, but if I were to post a comment or a question, anybody can comment, and anybody can comment whatever they want after that, and it just, I feel like it could get out of hand.
There are ways within the software to filter out those perhaps inappropriate, language or any inappropriate items, where those items would be flagged, and our administrator, Director of Public Relations, would be able to go in and look at those comments and make sure that those aren't pushed out to the general public if they are that inappropriate.
Right, okay.
Anyone else? We're looking for a roll call for 10.1, please.
Mr. Negrini?
Yes.
Mr. Case?
Yes.
Mr. Ehrlich?
Yes.
Mr. Hart?
Yes.
Dr. Kennedy?
Yes.
Mrs. Cocker?
Yes.
Mr. Martin?
Yes.
Mr. Wolf?
Yes.
That's 8-4, 0 against.
Thank you. Moving on to committee reports, BCTC. Mr. Case.
Since we have an audience tonight, I just